Cineboys to Cinemen, episode 47.
47, yes.
Hope you're well wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Feels a bit strange just being the two of us.
I know, yeah, we've had 2 episodes back-to-back of nothing but guests.
Yeah, guest after guest.
Guests and microphone clarity.
But it's nice in a way.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. A bit of a... We might have a guest on for next week's, but...
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, just a quick sort of dip back into a regular routine for a week, which is fine, yeah.
No, you're right, a bit of a return to norm.
Yes,
absolutely. We can't give you guests every week because then you'll start to expect it.
No. We'll get shitty emails and people
start to realise that we're the least compelling part of our own podcast.
Yeah,
which we probably thought in last week's episode.
More of these guys, please.
Yeah.
We probably just converted more people onto their podcast.
Yeah. Don't say what the name is.
Yeah.
This week, Madame Web.
Yep. Yeah.
Sort of a hasty wine-fueled decision at the end of last week's episode.
That's right.
It was something that I forgot that we promised to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that both of us had a degree of trepidation going into our separate screenings.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Given the sort of very public discourse around the film and it largely being panned by everything and everyone.
Yeah, the general consensus was that it was bad, and bad on a number of levels. So paying for a ticket for it felt odd.
Yeah,
because you kind of going against your instincts, whereas usually the films that we pick tend to be, apart from there's exceptions.
Yeah,
but it was just a strange going in.
Knowing that you were probably going to dislike it.
Yeah,
it's strange, isn't it? But I do think we tend to like most of the films we watch, so it's going to be a nice departure from that, I guess.
Oh yeah. I think even with like the Expendables 4, there might have been a kind of slight uncertainty. We're like, it might be enjoyable on face value, and it turned out not to be. But that was a surprise, not like an expectation. So.
Yeah, it's rare to. Yeah, I agree. As the film is a sort of deliberate throwback to sort of early to mid 2000s pre-MCU superhero films, we thought it'd be a good excuse to talk about some of those. And I also have a discussion about films where actors or people working on the film realise the film is shit whilst they're working on it.
Yeah.
And the reason I think this is an interesting topic to bring up in relation to this film is Dakota Johnson's very public comments about the film.
Yeah.
Responding to the sort of backlash or the lack of interest, basically saying that she doesn't blame anyone for either not watching the film or thinking it was shit. So,
yeah.
I don't know, it felt like that would be quite an interesting topic because it's not something we've ever really talked about before.
Yeah, an actor's feelings towards the finished product isn't something we typically discuss. So, yeah. Exciting. Looking forward to it.
Indeed. Shall we?
Yeah.
Questing the cinematic void.
Let's start the conversation about sort of those early to mid pre-MCU era Marvel superhero films.
Okay, yeah.
Because something that stands out to me whenever you discuss those films with like anyone, they seem to have like a sense of prestige that MCU films don't have. Like if you ask people that are into movies, there's a good chance that most of them won't like MCU films. But they will like Spider-Man 1 and 2.
Yes.
Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1 and 2, I mean.
Yeah.
They will like
X-Men. X-Men 2, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of people hold X-Men 2 up there with Spider-Man 2, for example.
Okay, yeah. So, and I think obviously there's a few obvious reasons for that. Chiefly the untethered nature of them.
Yeah.
I think obviously whilst these films are linked by the virtue of being their own separate franchise, and obviously they're subjected to the same sort of whims of a mainstream Hollywood studio.
Yeah.
Which the intention has always been the same, which is to make money. But I think that the way in which they did that, and obviously the time and the era was very different. But I just think there is something that does separate them significantly, aside from all that kind of stuff. Do you think you know what that is?
I definitely know what it is with the Spider-Man films. I think Sam Raimi being a filmmaker, that's quite a distinctive style, a general sort of sense of playfulness. I think that really comes across in those first 2 films. I think that might have been the last time a superhero film ever felt like it was created by, for lack of better word, an artist, I suppose.
Right, okay.
Because you have, I mean, he's got his style, hasn't he? And although it does to us in a sense like pander to convention quite a lot, he sort of plays with those conventions as well, and there's a real kind of almost slightly B-movie quality about them that makes them very charming. I think that's definitely one reason for, I mean, I think the first film that everyone thinks of when you say pre-MCU superhero is Spider-Man. It was a huge event, like 2002. I remember going to see it, being so excited. Break records, and then at that point it was quite rare for a sequel to do even better and be held in higher regard. It was like the sort of Empire Strikes Back a little bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons is the faith that the studio, whether that be Sony or 20th Century Fox, put on their directors at the time. I think that might be why, and we've lost that. We have lost that. Even sort of 2010 Marvel fare, that was lost, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's more of a service now to the overarching narratives. We talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
But the overarching narrative is king. Not only is it king to progress the story, but it allows offshoots which allow further marketing opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So that's always going to be in the back of everyone's mind in the process of sort of planning and making these films and even releasing these films. So obviously there's going to be creativity there. To say that there's no creativity would be incredibly unfair. But all of this creativity is being harnessed for one particular purpose, which is the service of this narrative model, this long-form content model that came to dominate the 2010s, 20s, or certainly to the mid-20s. And I think that whilst obviously Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films would have been incredibly lucrative for the studio, I'm sure obviously there were loads of toy cash-ins.
Yeah,
it does feel different. I've used this phrase or term already, untethered. There isn't a sense of having to sort of like bow to anything.
Yeah,
the film is within its own world, its own confines. And I think you're also right about Sam Raimi being able to implement a style. That, there is like a sort of through line from the very start of his work, his filmography, in like horror movies, right through to the Spider-Man films. You can see it. And I think Marvel now like to think that they do that, but the vast majority of directors don't really get an opportunity to embed anything particularly.
Yeah. I mean, imagine saying to Marvel now, I want a scene, a kind of track in Willem Dafoe doing a monologue to himself in a mirror. They'd be like, absolutely not.
No, yeah.
Where's the Silver Surfer in all this kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like, the fact that, I mean, they're a very literal adaptation of a comic book, in the sense that you can have a character monologue, and because you're forever seeing in the panels their sort of thoughts and their voices, but quite often they're actually in a room on their own. But like, how else do you convey with pictures like thoughts and feelings? And he translates that really well to the screen. And they've lost that now because it's kind of caught up in a big tangled web of universes and multiverses and characters.
I also think they're just more committed to the sort of medium of comic books as well. You mentioned the sort of early 2000s Spider-Mans and the X-Men films. I think the MCU films, obviously they borrow a huge amount. Why wouldn't they? A lot of their storytelling arcs come from very famous comic book runs, but it's in the service of that MCU style, the MCU version of those characters. Whereas I think a lot of the older sort of early to mid 2000s superhero films, you're seeing an extension of a comic book.
Yes.
In a far more literal way, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I do wonder, like, how much, damage the MCU has done to the validity of comic books.
Yeah.
Because I think that, because I used to be quite into them. But as MCU got more popular, I don't know, like I began to sort of be put off them.
Okay,
That's quite a snobby thing to say, but like, it's not anything to do with necessarily the comic books themselves.
Yeah.
I just think there is something that the MCU has done that has made comic books, I don't know, I think it's sort of cheapened the medium a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily a particularly popular opinion, because I imagine anyway the comic book sales at one point was stratospheric as a result of these films. So I don't know, but I do feel like there's a more genuine connection between the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films or the original X-Men films to the sort of source material than the MCU films. Now.
Oh yeah. I mean, like X-Men's very different from Spider-Man, although both of them have quite an emotional through line, I suppose. I feel like Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man films, were a lot more overtly kind of comic book inspired.
Yeah.
And X-Men was a lot more like political in its kind of in its subtext. Yeah, but nonetheless, I was hugely entertained by both franchises for a long time, and to the point where I was pretty sorely disappointed when The Last Stand wasn't any good. You remember that one?
Yeah.
That was 2006, I think. So that was just before Iron Man came out in 2008. So, yeah. You mentioned Hulk as well, Ang Lee's Hulk from 2003, which I went to see at the cinema and was slightly confused by it because it was, again, that was the year after Spider-Man. So to me, I must have been, I was like 10, 11, prime age, right, for these kinds of films.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I was basically expecting another Spider-Man, and I got something quite different, like interesting, but yeah, really unusual and different. And the comic book adaptation, like, kind of literally was like, it was a sort of a visual thing for the film. There's a lot of actual panels on the screen and stuff, and the transitions are very kind of comic booky.
Yeah.
You quite like it. Why is that?
I think it's just, again, like the sort of point you just mentioned there, I just think it's a very authentic adaptation of comic books. Like,
okay, yeah.
And I think the styling of it, the visuals, I mean, yeah, Hulk doesn't look great, but yeah, sort of 2003 can sort of let it off a little bit. I think.
Yeah, it's not awful.
It's terrible, no.
He's a weird colour.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people have problems with the sort of luminous nature of it.
Yeah, very luminescent, yeah.
I don't think the actual CG is too bad. I remember the dogs not being great.
The dogs aren't great.
Yeah. No. It took me a while to realise that because in the film it's Nick Nolte, isn't it? Nick Nolte. He injected them with the same serum that he had Bruce Banner.
Right, okay, yeah.
It happens in like in Shadow that they stop mutating, and I didn't, being too young, I think it didn't register that that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
So
right, okay.
To me, there was these normal dogs that then suddenly became huge dogs for no reason, and really vicious for no reason as well.
Killed the film for you.
Yeah. So it was. I think I watched it again about sort of maybe 4 years ago or something, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Yeah,
now.
I see it. Yeah,
I do have fond memories of that. It isn't without its merit for sure.
I think it's just very much, of that time. I think there was like a burgeoning interest in superheroes. I think that's happened throughout Hollywood. Certainly, if you think about like Tim Burton's Batman films, for example, it's sort of like, peaks and troughs.
Yeah,
I think that was always the relationship from that point onwards, really, that Hollywood had with superheroes.
Yeah.
I think it was just this idea that you could actually bring these characters to the screen.
Yeah.
And in a way that, was paying an effective homage to the medium that bore them, and I think that's why I really like Ang Lee's Hulk for that reason. I hadn't seen it in a while, but I revisited it fairly recently. I mean, by fairly recently, I probably mean like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was just taken aback by how much I sort of enjoyed it for those reasons.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of earnestness to that. There's a conviction in the way it's executed that I think a lot of modern superhero films just don't have.
Yeah. I do remember there being an overarching theme in Hulk about sort of American militarization and over-militarization, and how a country would react to something like this really happening. And that they kind of try to contain him, and so I remember that being quite interesting. Again, on a rewatch, because 11-year-old me was like,
Green Man. Where do those dogs come from?
Yeah. Doesn't he sort of jump across quite a vast expanse of ocean as well at one point?
Yeah,
I remember that as well.
Yeah.
Jennifer Connelly was good in that film.
Oh yeah.
Quite well cast, actually.
Eric Bana as well.
Yeah,
he's pretty good, isn't it? He was having a good time at that period. He was sort of like a star, wasn't he?
He'd just done Black Hawk Down. Yeah, he'd just done that, and he was great in that as well. Yeah, he was on a high. I think he sort of slipped back into Australian independent cinema at the moment. He's still working though, apparently.
Yeah.
So
Fair play.
yeah.
I was also thinking as well, not just Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Oh yeah,
that would have preceded Batman, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that relationship that film had with superheroes bore far more fruit for me in terms of actual solid movies that could balance the sort of thematic intent of the characters.
Yeah.
And had a sense of spectacle and enjoyment to them.
Yeah, good endings as well. They always ended.
Yeah, always ended well. Yeah.
They ended it as if,
if we don't get a sequel,
then the audience have a nice sort of parcel with a bow on it, Yeah, I agree.
And it was also in an era where the internet was around, but it's sort of still fledgling, and I don't know, like I feel like the discourse would have been about what could be, what could come. You know what I mean? And I think that's people almost like use their knowledge of comics or whatever, and they almost sort of scaffold their own ideas and what would come next.
Yeah,
in a way that sort of creates, I don't know, there's a sense of mystery to it that's always going to sort of be unfulfilled.
Yeah,
and that there's something appealing about that as well, which again MCU doesn't really have, because it sort of just spoon feeds you everything immediately. But
no, I think so. Yeah, I definitely think that that there just made me think of, they kind of periodically release a slate, the Marvel nowadays. Where it's literally like 2027. There's a film coming out about an obscure superhero you have no idea about, and that was definitely not in existence back then, was it? Yeah. Because they would have had to have done like a press conference, and even that would have been laughable, wouldn't it? They would have like, in 7 years' time, we've got this on the cards. Yeah. Like, what?
Yeah.
It is, and I do kind of miss those days when it was all speculation. Apparently Vulture's going to be the next one, kind of thing. Like, it was conversations like that, and you kind of, it wasn't ever a confirmation. It was just like, maybe it will happen. Yeah. I agree.
The rumour mill wasn't as substantial.
Completely.
And I guess obviously with the nature of like sort of social media and stuff, it makes it harder for sort of secrets to stay in studios and things not to get leaked. And I always get the impression like the big marketing machine, particularly in places like Disney and Marvel, they're very, I think they probably allow that kind of shit to happen because the internet has been such a powerful tool in the marketing machine for the MCU, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You haven't really had to do a great deal. Like, they released like a couple of trailers and they don't need to do anything else, Just put a couple of very sort of overt Easter eggs in there and you've got the internet in a fucking frenzy, haven't you? So
yeah, thinking back to like when No Way Home came out and everyone was wondering whether Maguire and Garfield were going to be in it, and all they needed to do was like release a picture of Andrew Garfield in the suit against a blue screen, and everyone went wild. And it was a self-perpetuating marketing annoyance for me. It could get a bit annoying. I was intrigued about whether they were going to be in it, but I knew that they were before I went to see the film.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see the film and gasp when they both came on screen. I was like, yeah, I know. Like, I've got Facebook.
Yeah, they're very good at like making you act surprised, even though you know it's going to happen. I always find it really sort of surprising when people, like when I start watching a Marvel film, that people would gasp at something. It's like, we all know this is going to happen.
Yeah, of course it is.
I guess sometimes when you're aware something's coming, maybe it makes you more excited. I know some people prefer that to being surprised.
Yeah.
But like, I just think that the idea that any of this has been sort of like a delicate marketing tool is bollocks. I always found it quite a sort of tough thing to swallow that anyone could be surprised at anything that Marvel did, because they were so obvious in the way they went about doing things.
Yeah.
In a way that back then it wasn't even a consideration, because social media wasn't really a thing, and if it was fucking pretty threadbare. No one really knew the potential of it.
Oh god, no, definitely not. No.
So like, it did feel like you were still more in the hands of people that were in the industry, or like were a part of the industry, in the sense that they were sort of like writing pieces about it or commenting about it, not just about the output, but the inner workings of it.
Yeah,
You're more at the mercy of those people than you were some fucking guy who somehow managed to come across some sort of information from the MCU and then
yeah,
tweets it.
Because he's watched the trailer 300 times.
Yeah.
Finally noticed like a pixel of red.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I bet you that's Garfield. Not the cat.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah. Dead Garfield.
Yeah.
You said red.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I'm thinking right now of those let's say pre-MCU, right? So pre-Iron Man. So we say Iron Man 2 is maybe the cut-off point. That was 2010. That's when it really started to gain traction, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can't, because I have seen, obviously, I've seen all of the Iron Man films, but I'm trying to remember what my sort of relationship was with the first one regarding, did they sort of like make it clear then that they were going to have like an expansive universe? I can't quite remember.
No, I don't think so, because it was Paramount still. Paramount released the first two. I think by the second one, because the second one was when like Samuel L. Jackson had a cameo as Nick Fury.
Oh yeah,
and there was like a scene which seemed very reshooty. Like by and large, I didn't really like the second one that much. Although Mickey Rourke's good in it.
Oh yeah,
but that was, for me, that was when they started to invade each other's space, all the different superheroes, and there was a sense that you were watching something in the same universe as the film before, whereas like the first Iron Man, Jon Favreau, just it has a clear ending, and I don't really remember it being part of a universe in particular.
No,
it has a similar aesthetic, but
yeah, definitely.
I think they touched up some of the CGI recently, actually, which is slightly troubling.
Oh really?
A bit of a George Lucas on it. Yeah, they went back and changed things so it fit with their new kind of model.
Oh really?
Yeah, I've got that might be bollocks, but I do remember reading something about that.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting about 2008 Iron Man, actually, in the sense that it did sort of feel like a sort of, obviously it was made in the early 2000s, but it still had the vibe of those other films.
Yeah,
not to the same level, I don't think, but I think it did have a sort of sheen to it, that sort of like darker 2000s look.
I think the humour was very much, they kind of established the humour of their universe in that film, and they sort of ran with it. It's got quite irritating. Because I saw it, I watched the first Iron Man again not too long ago, and the humour was I found it quite funny when I first watched it, but because of that kind of that just happened kind of thing that we both know, and like that sort of
queasy quippiness.
Yeah. There was a lot of that in it, and I remember thinking that, that's slightly off-putting now. But,
yeah. It's funny, you're sort of looking back at it now, aren't you, through the lens of all the films, the Marvel films you've watched subsequently.
Yeah.
So I do think there's something to be said. There is just something to be said for not having to adhere to a certain narrative structure, be that in the way that the events in the film play out, but also the way in which those characters get between those events and the dialogue exchanges. Say what you will about it, it's a very well-oiled machine. Almost too well-oiled.
Yeah.
If you're someone that fatigues easy as a result of repetition, then obviously that's going to sort of grind your gears a bit. But,
yeah.
I feel like those early 2000s films are a lot more. They sort of stand on their own feet in a much more sort of like meaningful way, whilst inviting the potential for follow-ups.
Yes, even the bad ones do that, like Fantastic Four 2005.
Oh wow, okay.
I am not.
There are some shit ones.
Yeah. But even
I'm not just romanticising them all because of MCU's current existence.
Yeah, no, but they are untethered though. They have that same energy. Like I had that one. I had the 2005 Fantastic Four on DVD, and I watched it fairly regularly.
Yeah,
like I used to enjoy it for what it was.
Yeah,
and if I probably revisit it now as a sort of nostalgic, like, oh, this is pretty naff, but like Jessica Alba and Chris Evans with his sort of frosted tips and
oh god, yeah.
Yeah, Johan Graffen as well.
Oh,
the Welsh actor who played strange casting, but fair enough. Yeah, there's a charm to that, which is definitely not present in post 2008 sort of superhero fare. I'm not. I wouldn't die on a hill for it, but I'm a slight defender of that on the basis that I used to enjoy it when I was younger.
I think the sort of thematic element as well that you were talking about. I mean, it's obviously going to be more present in these films because, again, there's no commitment to being like, no, we've got to have a Doctor Strange in here now. So can we just get rid of any of this potentially interesting thematic stuff?
Yeah.
Just so little Timmy doesn't get bored on his fucking cinema seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, I know the sort of early 2000s Marvel films. I'm sure those conversations happened.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, again, it feels like there's less of a concern about placating everyone.
Yeah.
Or as many people as possible. I just think to like some of the MCU films, Iron Man is pretty sort of, your mileage may vary with this, but it is pretty critical of the American military industrial complex.
Yeah. I remember that being quite a good moment in the first film where he realises that he's been injured by his own weapon.
Yeah.
That's quite. I mean, I'm sure that was in a comic somewhere, but I was like, oh, that's quite good that they've included that.
And there's something strange about him having that moral reawakening and then having complete ownership and refusing to give up the most powerful weapon he's ever made.
Yeah.
In the Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
Something troubling about that. But, with superheroes, you have to sort of accept there's always going to be some sort of chink in the armour.
Yeah.
In terms of the moral decency of or the thematic decency of it. But no, I think there was that's there. Whereas in these films, the only one I think sort of half comes close is the Winter Soldier.
A lot of people defend Winter Soldier as being a highlight of the MCU.
Like the first half of it, there's like a couple of nods to this idea about surveillance and preempting acts of terror before they happen, and what are the sort of moral ramifications for that.
Yeah.
And it's sort of threaded through in this sort of like 70s sort of Cold War paranoia, cooler sort of vibe, like Parallax View, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Very overt and through the lens of blockbuster cinema, but you take your wins where you can, right? I mean, again, I didn't come out thinking, God, that was so layered and well done, but I thought, obviously they have to rush through that and get to a big explosive battle sequence at the end because that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
Because little Timmy's getting bored, but...
Timmy, you prick!
Yeah. Get some fucking taste. To be fair, if you had taste, you probably wouldn't be there in the first place.
What's this instead? It's come and see.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. How snobby do we sound? Yeah. But yeah, no, that's one of the few ones I can think of. That and the first Iron Man. I have no doubt the writers probably start off with a sort of thematic idea.
Yeah.
But that just slowly gets withered all the way down, just to make sure it can fit the beats.
I feel like Thanos as a villain was interesting. Like the idea of omnicide is always an interesting idea, and there's a lot of sort of parallels towards the the kind of superpowers of the world and what power they hold and that kind of stuff. I thought that was like vaguely interesting, and they kept enough of that in for Endgame and like all that like Infinity War and Endgame to be sort of enjoyable, if obviously too long.
Yeah.
And people hold those films in quite high regard to this day, and I think there's a reason for that. I don't enjoy them nearly as much as as most people do, but there was something in that as well, just to kind of mention the whole omnicide thing. I thought was handled reasonably well. The stones were stupid. I don't know, the magic stones, like magic. The world they've created, like magic's real, so there's no stakes anymore, and that is a real problem for me.
Yeah,
but magic's basically real, isn't it? In the MCU.
Yeah.
But there doesn't seem to be any real rules to how.
Yeah, it makes it weird when you suddenly start imposing rules.
Yeah,
which they try and do quite a lot.
Yeah, I'm
to make
sure
their stories work.
But I don't remember any of those scenes.
Yeah,
I don't remember any of those moments where they're like, "Oh yeah, no, you can't do that because of this, and this," and "Oh, you'll break that," and I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like a badly written sort of high fantasy novel. Yeah,
it's the excess, isn't it? It's the excess, and I think that again, there's not as much of that excess in the sort of early 2000s.
No, definitely not. I said this last week about something entirely different, but the action always feels reasonably ground level, especially in like Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
like, the hits feel like real.
Yeah,
probably because they were. There's probably a lot more stunt work in it as well.
Yeah,
than there ever would be now.
Oh yeah, they're great. I mean, to me, the first Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I fucking love it. I just really do.
That has a really unique sort of feel to it.
Yeah, it's
and
just...
The score sounds like a spider. How genius is that as well? From the very beginning, I'd probably play that opening credit sequence in my head of just that from the moment Danny Elfman's main titles come on. Sorry, it's just like you're in for a treat. Because it sounds like a
doing
spider.
superhero scores. He can embody... He fucking Batman, didn't he? So.
Which was another great score.
Yeah. Tim Burton's. I just... Yeah, fuck. I just love Tobey Maguire's growth.
Yes.
In that film. And the silliness of it. And when he's in his pyjamas fighting that wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
Macho Man Randy Savage. I don't know, that just feels so perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
It's sort of, it's borrowing elements from its preceding eras, but in a way that feels totally early 2000s.
Oh, completely, yeah.
It's not sort of nostalgia for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah.
Which, again, is a big problem that modern superhero films have.
Yeah. And the kind of emotional crux of that, which is obviously Uncle Ben dying, which has been done to death since, like, they really nailed that as well. The kind of the balance of emotional and what Spider-Man is, which is kind of a funny, quippy, can't really see where he's going kind of character, and then combining that really, really beautifully with like his genuine struggles and the fact that the whole and identity is like a big theme in those first, even the third one, even the first three. About the sort of wrestling with the fact that you're not doing this for any sort of ego. You're doing it purely, almost as like a public servant, like a bin man or something.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that kind of.
It makes you feel good, but you're also doing it because you just want to be good.
Yeah.
And there's a purity there, isn't there? Yeah.
That scene
really casting these films in ethereal light.
I know, yeah, we're really like showering them with gold here, but
I do love them, and I guess also it might boil down to age.
I know.
Our age,
yeah,
right,
yeah, exactly. We're
gonna shower the praise for that. I think a lot of people who would disagree with us, that would probably be the first point they'd say.
Yeah, well, you were the right age to see it when they came out.
Yeah,
you're right. And yeah, this is going to sound, in that spirit, I suppose. One of my points was going to be that I think computer-generated imagery was expensive in 2001, so it's used sparingly. Even for a film that cost $100 million back then, it was still used quite strategically.
Yeah,
and so there's a lot of practical stuff in there. Like they shot loads of it in Los Angeles, which is weird because it really looks like New York. There's some location shooting in New York, but it's too expensive to film there. So there's a sort of a real world quality to it. That again, I mean, this is like a really common criticism about films becoming too computer CG heavy. The reason for it is because it's cheaper than building sets now, and it wasn't back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do think that there's something that we can never really quite capture again now.
Yeah. We've sort of free fall into it, haven't we, really?
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that in the pursuit of this, I mean, this sort of goes back to what we were saying in the last episode, regarding, AI. It's not necessarily, the concern isn't necessarily the technology itself, it's more how that technology is used.
Yes, yeah.
And the relationship that, creatives have with it. But if that relationship is being dictated by the same people who encouraged a complete free fall into CGI to the point it becomes almost like you're watching like cartoons.
Yeah.
Then I think again there's reason to be concerned, and I think it's a real shame that we've lost that sort of practical sort of feel.
Oh yeah,
to films, because it does give a sense of, not just a sort of sense of, I guess, tangibility, but I don't know, like it feels more part of the DNA of the medium itself.
Yes. Completely, yeah, and it feels like it was planned ahead.
Yeah.
Not an afterthought. And also it kind of lends itself to that, when you're a child, you sort of, part of the appeal of these superhero films is that you feel like you could step into their shoes.
Yeah.
And having a real costume on screen makes that kind of feeling all the more sort of, you can validate it because it's a real costume. And so in theory you could go out and buy one and look like it, whereas I just did the Spider-Man hand there. Couldn't see that. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't really do that now. I mean, getting Thor's costume, you can dress up like him for Halloween, but majority of the time you see them in mocap suits, and you can tell as well the metal doesn't quite look right.
Yeah, it's got an awkward shine to it, hasn't it?
Yeah. Too perfect sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Micromanaged. It just feels micromanaged, and there's no spontaneity to it.
It's interesting to note as well that, well, we've sort of spent most of the time talking about Sam Raimi's Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but he did actually work on MCU film. He made Doctor Strange.
He did, yeah.
Which I actually haven't seen.
No, I've heard it was overall disappointing considering his experience with the genre.
But again, it's that sort of thing. It's that they're going to bring him in. Again, I haven't seen the film, so take what you will from this criticism. But they're bringing him to resurrect that. It's a fucking marketing move.
Completely.
Remember Sam Raimi? Do you remember the guy that made those great Spider-Man films? The guy that's got a bit of a darker edge?
Yeah.
Oh, well, here he is.
Yeah.
But working entirely through the prism of what we want him to do.
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels like even when, people would say, well, James Gunn got to do what he wanted to do. I mean, yeah, okay, his films are probably the most distinct films in the MCU.
Yeah, agreed, yeah.
But I think that was more down to the fact that no one really expected the Guardians to do that well.
No.
And I also think that once they realised that his way of doing things isn't as revolutionary to the old storytelling model as people say it is. No. I think people have just been so fucking starved of originality.
Yeah.
They just, anyone that does something slightly different, well, this is a bit quirky with the other ones. Oh God, this guy's a genius. We seem to do that quite readily now as fans of particularly big blockbuster franchise film fans tend to do that. The same thing happened with Taika Waititi, I guess.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Not to sort of rag on both of those guys too much. I know in the last episode, after I'd had about 3/4 of a box of wine, I was quite harsh about Taika Waititi, but I just think there's something. I think 15 years ago, I don't think they would have been lauded as much in that category as they are now.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Guardians, the strength of that and the kind of legacy of it was the soundtrack was quite good, but then obviously that's not an original score. That was songs that were already out there, and he's just utilised them and oh wow, they're in a superhero. How different of him!
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. I mean, I like Guardians, but for the soundtrack, quite a bit more than maybe even I expected.
Yeah.
I don't know about James Gunn and what he's doing now. I don't really think about it too much. I think about it more than I should, actually.
Well, you could just say you have a film podcast. That's enough of a reason to justify thinking about these things.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, he's, I'm just interested. I mean, I think we talk about this so much, but I am just interested to see what he does with the DC stuff, because as someone that was always a big fan of it.
You were more of a Batman DC fan.
I was, and I always just thought, it'd be interesting to see a sort of valid counterpart. I mean, I always think about George Miller's version of the Justice League.
Oh, the unrealised version.
Yeah, when he was
Kevin Smith as well with Superman.
He was, he was really going to go in deep into the sort of darker. I know that's a fucking buzzword that everyone throws around with superheroes, but this is pre all that shit. So he was really going to go in deep on that. I think Arnie Hammer was going to be Batman. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was interviews with George Miller who's sort of laid out his casting decisions.
He's probably quite happy that didn't happen. For obvious reasons. His co-stars were as well, to be fair. It's future potential co-stars.
Yeah, no, God. Imagine that.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I'm interested to see what he does with that.
I'll go and watch Is it Superman? What's the next one?
Oh, Superman.
Something.
Red pants. Something. I don't know. I'm wearing red
Superman
pants.
in America.
Superman in a cornfield. Undulating wheat.
Yeah. Isn't this the Gladiator soundtrack? I think it is, I don't know. I'll watch it. I'll probably go and see it. That film's going to make fucking 1.5 billion, I bet. And then we'll see what happens with it.
But aren't we supposed to be having superhero fatigue?
Yeah.
I think part of the reason Madame Web, they released it in this sort of period, I don't know, maybe this is a bit conspiratorial, but, it's that sort of attempt to dredge up that enthusiasm for, that untethered superhero film experience in a landscape where people are at least on face value, according to more recent box office figures, are becoming fatigued with this idea of a giant shared universe. I don't know, but I'm not so sure about that. I think you're right. I think it's because you could take another superhero film to come out. and you'll make loads of money.
Yeah, that will make a lot.
Or the detractors will just be like, okay.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, it will die eventually. It has to.
Yeah.
Nothing can last. Nothing can last forever.
No. It's like the Western and the Swords and Sandals epic.
The
same thing will happen.
James couldn't say something about that himself. I'm sure he said like, well, the Western died after a while.
Yeah,
it's funny
really.
to see him now doing this. What feels like the sort of natural end of the superhero movie.
Yeah,
he's now still working tirelessly to sort of keep it alive, despite making comments about the end. I'm sure it was him. Again, that might be bollocks, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually know that. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me though.
So, what are your favourite sort of pre-MCU superhero films? If you had to pick two,
all right.
Because I feel like 3 it would be pretty obvious.
Yes,
but 2.
All right, X-Men 2.
Okay,
or X2, X-Men United, and the first Spider-Man. I think for me that'll be my 2.
I think I'm probably inclined to go the same. Although I do quite like Blade.
Oh, Blade, yeah. Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, Wesley. Because 2's Del Toro, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Blade.
That's pretty good, that.
That is good. That's violent as well.
Yeah.
I liked that.
But then I also like Ang Lee's Hulk. Should have given it 3. Again, it just boils down to that thing, like...
Yeah.
That era of superhero films, it just feels more perfect for that period of time.
Yeah, agreed, yeah. I think it's...
I'll go Spider-Man, and...
I think we're both going to have a Spider-Man, aren't we?
Yes, the first Spider-Man is
great.
Just excellent, yeah. And again, it boils back to what we were saying at the start of the conversation. It's a film that people that don't necessarily like superhero films now would still say they love. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those films. It was back before like superhero films was sort of like a dirty word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're sort of a cultural philistine now if you say you like Marvel films in a sort of posh cinema like The Watershed. But you could still probably get away with saying that you like
Spider-Man,
Sam Raimi.
Definitely, yeah.
That, and I'm going to say Ang Lee's Hulk.
All right, nice. Yeah. Nice, I like it.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to our second subject of the evening?
Agreed.
Dakota Johnson.
Not agreed. That makes sense. Yes. Yes, let's. It's an interesting topic, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the idea of working on something and then realising it's shit is really interesting. And my only sort of personal relationship with this is that in my brief time as an on-set runner, I was working on like a TV film, and we'd get the script, like the sides every day, the script that you were going to shoot for the day. I remember reading it and thinking, this isn't very good.
Oh, right, yeah.
And again, but then my opinion doesn't count for fuck all because I'm just a lowly runner. And it doesn't really matter what I think. But the more people I asked, they were all like, this is shit.
It's crazy how that can spread.
Yeah.
And probably contribute to the quality of the end product as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it didn't help that the people making it were cutting corners furiously in all aspects of production. And really, I mean, I don't want to sort of name names. Not that anyone name names would care. But like there was, by the end, I think everyone was just fucking relieved it was over.
Right, yeah.
But there's also like an element of like people have just got a job to do, so they just do it.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Which I've always found quite a sort of interesting sort of duality, because on the one hand it's creative and you're passionate about being creative. On the other hand, it's still a job.
Yeah.
And you can't always be that particularly if you're like a less well-known member of a film crew or something like that.
Yeah, if you have no stake in the creativity of the thing. Like the DOP might make some visual changes based on a genuine want to make things as good as he or she can. However, if you're making the tea, you can't be like, I'm going to make this the fucking best cup of coffee I've ever had. And
you're not going to be embarrassed to say that you were the fucking runner on Madame Web. No one's going to be like, well, you fucking ruined this film, you bastard. Giving hobnobs to fucking SJ. What is her name?
SJ Clarkson.
SJ Clarkson.
Yeah.
I have this sort of theory that any director that insists on having a name like that is just going to be a fucking shit director for hire. S.J. Clarkson.
Is it
J.A. Bayona?
J.A. Bayona, yeah.
I mean, he's actually, come good with
Society of the Snow.
Society of the Snow, which was really good. So I'll eat my words there.
No, yeah, but I agree with you. For the longest time, he did he did a bunch of like Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom as well,
which is a smouldering pile of
feces.
Yeah,
fecal.
I forgot the word poo. I forgot about the word poo for about 10 seconds.
Smouldering pile of gold. I love that movie. I can't think of any other abbreviated first names.
I don't know why I've really nailed my colours to the mast here without doing my research, but I'm sure there's others.
J.J. Abrams, you could argue that, he was a director for hire in that he did the third Star Wars when Colin Trevorrow got sacked.
That's true, and that's crap.
He's primarily known for his franchises.
Yeah, he did Star Trek, didn't he, as well?
He did Star Trek, he did Mission Impossible 3.
I mean, he has made good blockbuster films.
They are good, but I think he's still sort of in that territory a little bit.
Okay. Do you know what? I'll give you that, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to bolster my...
maybe,
yeah. But no, it's interesting how that impacts people. And I guess the only people that really have to deal with the brunt of the criticism for being in these films are the people that make probably the most money out of it. I guess that's probably why like actors and actresses get the most shit. It's because like they obviously, by the nature of their role in the production, a lot of the time they're chosen because of their star power or their ability to bring something which is sort of can be in sync with whatever it is they're trying to achieve with the movie, but also because they're really famous and everyone knows who they are and they make a lot of money, so by that metric everyone assumes that you can sort of just take being told that what you've done is shit. Which I think you can and should expect people to sort of say stuff about the work you've been involved with, because there's a loss of ownership, isn't there, which we've talked about.
But
I do think sometimes I do feel sorry for them.
Yeah, on the press tours when the smell is bad already.
Yeah,
like I'm thinking about like Ben Affleck when he was doing Batman v Superman press tour, and I think he was struggling with like addiction issues at the time as well. But you can tell in the interviews that he's just, oh Jesus, like I've fucked up here. This isn't like everyone knows this is a bad film, and I have to pretend that I'm enthusiastic about it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look like a tit, and you can see that in his eyes, and it's horrible.
On a basic human level. Which I think you should attribute to even the most sort of stratospheric star.
Yeah.
Unless they're a tosser. No, I'm joking. I don't know. Like, I do feel sorry for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think,
especially if they've been sold an idea about something and then it ends up being so drastically far removed from what they actually originally set out to be involved in.
Well, yeah, case in point with Dakota Johnson, and I think she thought it was going to be a exclusively Marvel sort of fare, and when she figured out that Sony was sort of, they had its own branch of NAFA, even worse sort of superhero films that are universally acknowledged as being inferior, so Morbius and Venom and stuff. She probably was embarrassed by that, and she sacked her agents after the first trailer came out, when I think she realised she was in the next Morbius. Basically, she's like,
that's a shit thing to realise.
I know, and obviously, like you say, then she went on to be very indifferent and quite open and honest about her feelings towards the film in the press press tour for the film.
I was looking at her filmography, and obviously she's, I was thinking she's in the remake of Suspiria. She's really good in that. But like, I think a lot of mainstream audiences are going to only really see her as the person from the 50 Shades franchise, and now, Madame Web.
Madame Web, yeah,
and that's probably not. For someone that wants to break out and do other things, it's probably that might weigh on you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really care, but
it wouldn't surprise me if she does some plays after this to try and drum up some positive publicity.
Yeah. A lot of actors do that, don't they?
That's
something that Birdman sort of plays with quite interestingly, isn't it?
That's it. Kind of that washed up actor trying to claw back some integrity with theatre, treading the boards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go on then. So you've got a list of actors that had similar realizations.
Yeah. I'll briefly mention these. Like, there's, funnily enough, Jessica Alba had some shit to say about Fantastic Four. And she's like, I just hated making it. she said that the director told her to, if she's crying, could she make it look like she's still pretty and stuff like that. So she sort of had some nasty experiences with that.
You're probably going to get more comments like that from directors for hire, aren't you?
Yeah,
because they're going to be acting more with the studio's sort of mindset.
Yeah,
and the studio mindset isn't going to be as sort of creatively minded. As the director or the people on set are allegedly supposed to be. I think if you're like a foot soldier for that belief system and that way of thinking, then you're probably going to say things like that to people like Jessica Alba, are you?
Yeah.
I'm not excusing it. I'm saying it in a way that makes me say, fair play to her for calling him out on it. But.
It's a horrible thing to say for a start, and it is like you say. Yeah, it sounds like a studio note. Like she has to be attractive in this throughout, no matter what she's doing. So any inkling of a genuine sort of performance, snuff it out. Bill Murray apparently thought Garfield was written by Ethan Coen of the Coen brothers, and then made it based on that. Whereas it's written by Ethan Coen, director of Holmes and Watson. So,
oh my fucking god!
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be a bit of an urban legend actually, but still quite funny.
I like the idea of it anyway. All the same.
Yeah, I mean, I said this last week. I'm not a huge fan of him, and he sounds like he's a bit of a moody twat about it, to be honest. But Mark Wahlberg with The Happening.
Okay,
he's sort of. I think after the press tour, to be fair, I think he behaved himself for the press tour, but then on subsequent chat shows, he goes on chat shows quite a lot.
Yeah,
he's always on like Graham Norton and that. He's always like slightly pissed. It's a bit strange, quite funny, but a bit odd. And he sort of admitted Happening wasn't really. He was misled.
Wasn't really happening.
No.
I mean, he doesn't like boogie nights.
Oh, I can't believe he doesn't
I think he sort of had that like a moral sort of Christian reawakening thing.
Okay, yeah.
And
the content in that obviously is
it's not sort of
conducive
in line with exactly. But it's a shame because it's probably still his best performance, I think.
Yeah.
Ted 2.
Max Payne.
Oh yeah. He's got a good performance in him still.
I think so. I think he's a good actor. I just struggle a lot.
Something inaccessible about him, I think, though. Sometimes,
it
creeps me out.
His sort of career choices are baffling sometimes because he sort of he's clear he wants to win an Oscar, but it's also quite clear that he's sort of really, really good friends with Michael Bay. Yeah, at the same time, and
he seems to really buy into the sort of like ultra nationalistic worldview.
Yeah, God,
American
he was in that Boston Marathon bombings film about
and 21 Miles. 21 with Iko Uwais from The Raid.
Yeah,
that's crap. Peter Berg, that isn't it?
Yeah, Peter Berg, who shares a similar ideology. He's very sort of pro-military. He's directed some good films, like Lone Survivor. I didn't mind, although that carries that theme, obviously. But the film was good enough for it to
sort of ignore it a little.
Yeah, you could kind of work on that a little bit. Jim Carrey, Kick-Ass 2, he refused to do any press for it because of the violence in the film. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit strange. You mean he didn't have any sort of reservations during the film itself?
Yeah, afterwards he was like...
After he got his paycheck, he was like, oh no, now I'm going to play that card. I guess... It's probably sort of quite hard to leave a film halfway through.
No, I think there's contracts and stuff.
Yeah,
and probably
I don't know how you would do that.
Yeah, I know.
Sort of shoot yourself.
Yeah, that would do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so Jim Carrey should have probably shot himself to get out of the film. Not necessarily in the face, like maybe in like the leg.
Yeah, just maim himself. So
so he couldn't play whatever character it was he plays. I don't think I've seen it.
Colonel Stars and Stripes, I think.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I have seen it. Yeah, because I remember him. Yeah, very overt. Okay, yeah.
The list goes on really, but a lot of these are just like Jennifer Lawrence didn't like making Passengers. Miami Vice. Like both Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell sort of weren't that big on the final product of that film.
Yeah,
that was Michael Mann, wasn't it?
But it's funny, that's had a resurgence.
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
in a lot of people's minds. I wonder if that's going to change their opinion of it.
Yeah.
I'm interested by that. That's an interesting point in itself, isn't it? Like, you or Alex touched on it during the discussion about Showgirls.
Oh, Carl McLaughlin's response.
Like he's sort of warming to it more, isn't he? As a result of the sort of slow shifting sort of audience view, you know.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast where he was asked about it, and he was kind of like, he was clearly surprised, but he was up for talking about it. He didn't sort of say, "Oh no, I don't want to talk about Showgirls. I want to blank it away from my mind." It's clear that these stars still kind of are with the, you know, they kind of ebb and flow with the audience response. And I guess, you know, as performers, you sort of have to be, I suppose. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it is a sort of, you know, it's a business that relies on people's enjoyment ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah.
Certainly in more mainstream, in the mainstream side of things. So if if everyone says it's shit, you can't not think, oh, maybe it is shit. You do get some people that come out swinging and defend it and say they really enjoyed it and, you know, the process of it and are really proud of it, but that's quite rare.
Yeah. Andrew Stanton said that for John Carter.
Did he?
Yeah, there was an interview with him where he was like, "No, it's brilliant." And you're like, "Are you sure? Are you sure about that, Andrew?"
I think he stuck to his guns.
Yeah, I think he actually said, "I bet you it will have a cult following in 10 years," and it hasn't. But yeah.
It's a bummer for him.
Absolutely. Sorry, Andrew.
Pour one out for John. But he's not dead. His career is. Zing! Centre Boys exclusive.
Yeah.
Catty here. Catty boys.
We are. I was a couple of episodes ago with someone's hair. Yeah, Nicole Kidman's hair. Sorry, Nicole.
Slagging her off.
Yeah.
You have to bring it back. I'd like to remind everyone that I didn't like her in that particular film.
Yeah. Hair in the others, however, is perfect.
Yeah.
Sort of curls and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do an episode about that hairstyle.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Are there any other ones?
Mate, this list is actually quite exhaustive.
Is it? Give us like one or two more.
All right. We have Robert Pattinson for Twilight.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's in. You can tell in his interviews as well. He's
left the fucking building, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's checked out.
It's so interesting, that, isn't it? Because it's sort of similar, I guess, maybe for Daniel Radcliffe and Harry Potter, even though, you know, the Harry Potter films are sort of widely more beloved than the Twilight films are. But yeah, it's the franchise that makes you, and sort of is the platform that's going to springboard you to other stuff. But that's always going to be the reason you're there.
Yeah,
and it's so much more prominent. Like, you think about directors, you think about actors like Ryan Gosling, who's part of the sort of like Disney group. There's like sort of sickly sweet Disney kid shits, you know. But he's sort of completely shed that to the point where no one really mentions that.
No, yeah.
And maybe that's because of the choices he made, or maybe it was sort of, you know, maybe the sort of Disney kid thing didn't have quite the sort of cultural impact that Twilight did. Yeah. But like, you know, in the case of Robert Pattinson, that's always going to fucking follow him, isn't it? Everywhere he goes.
Oh yeah,
he's done a better job of putting that in the rearview mirror than Radcliffe has with Harry Potter, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say.
And I'd probably say it's because Pattinson's a better actor.
I think so. I don't hate Radcliffe. But
no, I don't. But in terms of like the output of films post franchise,
I think films like Good Time are what really elevates him. Yeah, because he's actually really. You could watch him. I would watch that film purely for his performance.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Whereas I'm struggling to think of a Daniel Radcliffe performance I would sort of single out as being like
the best. Yeah, really great. Yeah,
he's always serviceable in films, but he's never like the reason I'd go and watch one.
Yeah.
Whereas Pattinson has that edge, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like Lighthouse, he's fucking great in that.
Yeah, man.
He's even pretty good in as a Batman. I mean,
I quite liked his
moody emo Batman, but yeah, I mean, it's serviceable.
Yeah, it doesn't feel out of place, and he's trying reasonably hard, I think.
And that's an interesting film, really, thinking about it, if you consider the fact that is a you know, untethered superhero film.
Yes, definitely. It mostly has its own stylistic sensibilities, which I mean are simple. They're simple. It's basically if you want to light a scene, use only one color. That's its aesthetic. So it's a simple aesthetic, but it does work. Like, you know, that sort of the streets bathed in orange light and it's constantly raining. There's something a bit Finchery about it.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, I guess, sort of being untethered in that way, it allows you an access to a slightly more sort of highbrow range of influences.
Yeah, completely.
That others don't get. Yeah, interesting. Go on then, one more. Then we'll move on to talk about Madam Webb.
Oh,
that was clever.
That was good.
That was really clever, wasn't it? Fuck.
Oh, mate, we're going to have to stop whilst I howl with laughter for 5 minutes. Josh Brolin, Jonah Hex.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's also understandable.
Yeah, he said, I think it deserved that bashing for reasons that those critics will never know. We were almost ready to drop the film when this kid, director Jimmy Hayward, came up. He was an interesting young guy, full of energy, and he's so obsessed with Jonah Hex. I thought, this is either a really bad decision or a brilliant decision.
Oh. That was like, that could have been the film that sort of like springboarded him to like a completely different kind of Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, he finally sort of did it with Thanos a little bit.
That's true.
And
he's in Dune, you know?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's great.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, No Country for Old Men, that's a standout.
I mean, he is a brilliant actor. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's interesting that. Go on then, let's talk about Madame Web.
Oh, all right.
Madame Web. Again, wasn't really, I wasn't sprinting to the cinema for this one.
No.
The Dear Film Angle boys didn't really sell it. I appreciate their honesty more than anything else.
Yeah.
But, I was really not looking forward to it. I saw it last night. And I got home from work, and usually if I know I'm going to the cinema, I'm always like, "Oh, cool!" That sort of gets me through the day.
Yeah,
Not that, I always make my life sound really bleak, don't I? But it's exciting. Think, good, I'm going to indulge like my passion, right?
Yeah.
As I'm sure all of our keen listeners would attest to, being fellow cinephiles. But here I had no enthusiasm, there was no sense of joy in me.
No, I was
going in, which is
it's a bad start, isn't it? Like, I mean, I was sort of quite happy it was under 2 hours, but
it felt wrong though.
Yeah, I spent a long time looking for discount codes as well because I was so annoyed about having to pay for it.
I actually tried to find an illegal stream of it.
Oh, mate, yeah, I shouldn't
admit this. I never do that kind of shit ever.
Yeah.
And I've got a few mates that are like big into torrenting and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I
like
thought
12 laptops.
Yeah. It's like, should I just go get it that way? Like, should I like get off my fucking soapbox just for this probably shit film?
Yeah,
and I didn't. I actually went to the cinema. So
there we go.
You're welcome, Columbia.
Got to see
Sony.
It with its Dolby Atmos mix.
Yes, exactly.
Which was it really quiet for you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, sound isn't really my area of expertise, but I thought it was like a painfully awkward film in how quiet it felt.
Yeah.
It accentuated the silence that was coming from an already small audience who were baffled by how shit it was.
Yeah.
And it just created this bizarre sort of, it just felt fucking awkward and stilted.
Is it like watching a school play?
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
What a strange film. Sort of mentioned this in the intro, but it attempts to resurrect that sort of early 2000s era vibe feel to it.
Yeah.
By very literally being set in 2003.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That sort of Spider-Man, Sam Raimi era, New York.
Yep. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of clear nods to that period of time.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I sort of said I was being a bit conspiratorial, but I think there is an attempt to resurrect that. And I think Sony, Columbia, I think it's Sony, isn't it?
Yeah.
They, I've tried to resurrect that throughout all of their movies. I feel that sort of 2000s era feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they'll be aware that they have the golden eggs with the first two Spider-Man films, the Sam Raimi ones, right? So they must have a sort of ambition to hark back to that era.
Yeah,
and they'll be aware of that, and that's probably why Madame Web. One of the reasons why they said it in 2003. You can't force that, I don't think. I feel like, and it also felt a bit like an afterthought. They probably had a script and they're like, right, what era should we set it? We could make a few changes. Maybe make a reference to a mobile's phone at one point.
Yeah.
And how new they are at that time and put a Britney Spears song in there.
Yeah.
But that was pretty much it. Like, I don't think they succeeded in sort of drumming up that sense of nostalgia. Do you?
Yeah. No, I don't agree. No, I do. No, I found that choice really interesting. And again, it's sort of like the resurrection of that untethered era of superhero films through the lens of of an era where films are very tethered.
Yeah.
And there's this sort of queasy quippiness that we sort of frequently lament on Cineboys to Cinemen regarding superhero films in the writing.
Yeah.
It was very present here in Madam Web. So it felt like a bizarre sort of like Frankenstein's monster of two different eras.
Yeah.
And the era they wanted to sort of pay so much love to is sort of ruined almost entirely and loses any value almost entirely as a result.
Oh yeah, completely. And also they couldn't help themselves. They had to make a reference to Ben, there's that kind of Ben Parker thing in it, and obviously the baby that's born is Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't resist, could they? They had to tie it to something at the end, so it even doesn't succeed in its own ambition.
Yeah.
If you're talking about rules, it is tethered. It's tethered to something.
Yeah.
I don't think they even quite knew what it was, because it's probably Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I'm assuming that's what the baby was. The baby grows up to be. Fuck knows. I mean, this is it. This is a problem. You got to commit to it. It's not, but it really feels like an afterthought. And the inclusion of that world was just needless, because it bears no real significance on the plot, what little plot there is.
It's so light on plot, isn't it?
Yeah.
So light on plot. Nothing really knitted nothing felt sort of together.
No,
it all just felt so incredibly disjointed. I mean, if we go back to Dakota Johnson's view on it, is that she was talking about this idea of filmmaking by committee ruining the movie. And I think if we talk about all the examples we've just mentioned earlier, in the last section or last segment, it's like that is probably quite a common theme as well. When this idea that there's a lot riding on a movie and there's a lot of anxiety about how the movie is going to be perceived. Particularly in an era where there's concerns about the longevity of the genre, and also the sort of future of the medium, given that it's on the cusp of so much change, or sort of still reeling from the change of streaming, etc. There's a lot more. I guess there's a much greater excuse for at least studios feel for them to get involved. And what happens 9 times out of 10. Is that it just makes things worse. And I think this film feels like a sort of disjointed mixture of what probably started out as a relatively earnest project.
It does,
and is sort of just become lost as a studio said, no, do this, do that, at the expense of any sort of competence, plot. Writing is fucking dreadfully written.
It's bad,
It's so bad. I mean,
you can almost tell that the actors know it's bad when they're saying their lines as well. They're kind of almost looking at you going don't worry, in their performance there's a kind of knowing, I know this is a bad line tone to it, especially Dakota Johnson, who just doesn't, there's no intonation in her voice, despite no matter what kind of peril she's supposedly facing. She's just so raw, one note in this film. It's crazy.
Sydney Sweeney's the same. She plays this sort of timid teenager.
There's an uncomfortable sort of, she's dressed up as a schoolgirl, and I found that a bit odd.
It's just and every line of dialogue is so dispassionately delivered.
I
guess with the other actresses, you could argue that they're perhaps not as well known as those two, so they probably got more riding on it.
They were miscast as well, though, because there's one who's meant to be a nerd, but she doesn't feel like one at all.
No.
She just has lines which are sort of vaguely sciencey.
She has and
then they're all living together at the end, aren't they? We'll get a Chinese takeaway at the end. She's got those really comically hilarious sunglasses on. And it's just
man. And that was the only bit that felt 2000's era to me, was the ending. I was do you know what, that actually is sort of one of the few things in this film that is worked and is homage to this particular era. It's a sort of naff closing montage, which I kind of have a lot of time for. Bizarre film.
Hannah, I went to see it with Hannah, and she actually sort of defended Dakota Johnson a little bit in her, and she sort of said, I think it was exclusively the screenplay. She doesn't think it was a bad performance.
Oh, really?
Which is interesting, because I sort of did. But
is it more that we're just sort of assuming disinterest on her part because of her subsequent remarks and the overall quality of the film?
Yeah, maybe, because I
feel that might be the case
Yeah, because I already knew about her reaction to the film before seeing it, so maybe I was on the hunt for that kind of behaviour or maybe I was just like you say, projecting in that onto her performance, and maybe it wasn't as bad as all that. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe watch it again. Right now.
Yeah, shall we?
Yeah.
Cineboys Live.
Yeah, we could do next week and pretend to like say we're doing one film and then just review Madame Web again.
Critical reevaluation a week later. Yeah, no, like dreadful stuff. The villain, I mean, I can't remember the chap's name. Again, more fantastic research. He was in Prophet.
Oh, right.
It's the fella from A Prophet, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, pretty good actor. His reasoning for wanting to kill all three of them is a bit weird.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole thing about the NSA security stuff, when he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get these cameras. Yeah. And the next scene, they're all just installed.
Yeah, and she like reads out the entire password, doesn't she? There's a bit where she just says the password to him and it doesn't cut away or anything. Really strange. Oh God, yeah. He's basically he has to kill these girls because he's having visions of the future that he knows are going to come true of him dying at their hands. But like, I don't know, couldn't you just move? Can you just move house? Yeah. I always thought like, surely it'll make more sense for you to go on the run. For a start, that's not illegal in itself. You seem to have enough money and resources to do so quite easily.
He kills Madame Web's mum, doesn't he?
That's right, in
Peru.
Yeah, that's
We're always so bad at explaining the plot of films. I just assume people have watched it, or in this case, people aren't going to give a shit anyway.
No, I don't.
I wouldn't care.
I don't think it matters. Yeah. The whole Peru thing was quite stilted as well when she just turns up there.
Yeah, she's like, I've got to fly to Peru.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, this guy's like trying to literally like snap the necks of these like teenage girls.
Yeah.
In the most brutal way. I'm going to leave them with my like idiotic mate. He's framed as a bit of an idiot.
Yeah.
Nice, but idiot. And I'm going to fuck off to Peru. And also, if, again, like, I'm not necessarily of the habit of chasing plot holes, because I think it's like the laziest kind of film criticism you can have.
Yeah.
But in the context of this film, because it's written so badly, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, no.
Like, if the whole point is that he has access to all these cameras, she goes to a fucking airport.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Surely, like,
you'd have to go. So you couldn't just sort of charter a flight and say, "Hey, can you just land in the middle of this sort of field?
Turn your cameras off, please."
Like, yeah, no. Or just write a scene where that's the case.
Yeah.
Have that as a kind of, you know, I've got to stay under the radar here. Somehow I've got to get to Peru. Yeah, it'll add 10 minutes to the runtime, but I don't know, it might be kind of interesting segue. Maybe there is. Maybe we'll get a director's cut. I don't know. I hope not. Don't bother.
I can't imagine the people that like demanded Snyder's Justice League cut coming out for this film.
Release the Clarkson cut. It's just Jeremy Clarkson's done an edit. Yeah, and it's amazing.
Yeah, he re-edits the film.
Yeah.
Spending his time punching runners in between.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, that this film, because, you know, we sort of frequently lament like audiences in terms of their passivity to these kinds of movies, but obviously there is a limit, because this film has been sort of met with, you know, it's not doing well, is it? It's not making money. It's not one of those situations where critics band together and fucking pan something and the audience almost
they reject it, don't they?
They reject the critical consensus in favour of, you know, enjoying it, you know, and just, you know, plainly, in plain terms.
Yeah, I mean, even like you know, the Marvels had its defenders.
Yeah.
And that is probably going to have a life on streaming that will be quite healthy, I imagine. But with this, it's like, it's like kind of a sort of showgirl situation, or maybe that's a bad example, but like, it's pretty universally hated and laughed at and derided in a way that must be quite embarrassing.
Yeah. Like, we talk about this idea that like mainstream audiences aren't aware of the sort of process of filmmaking, and yet it seems to be the bad films that make people aware of that process.
Yeah,
because people are sort of inexplicably, they can sort of almost explain why it was shit or the script was terrible. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, like, so you understand, you know, like, again, I know that might sound a bit twatty, but I'm just approaching it from that sort of that broad sort of, like, people will say things like, it didn't make any sense, it didn't feel like it threaded together. So there's obviously people are thinking about editing, you know, without if they know it or not, like, it's, you know,
they're not as stupid as even they kind of express.
Exactly, as the sort of studio was maybe hoping they were.
Yeah.
And we sort of, again, we lament this audience, the audience that, is so passive to superhero films, and, in our mind, so I'm saying both of us here.
Yeah, that's all right, yeah.
Give credit to filmmakers for doing things different when they don't really do anything different at all.
Yeah.
But, this is, these are the same people that are rejecting this film on the basis that it is just shoddily assembled.
Yeah.
And, is clearly the victim of, like, loads of people who don't really care about making movies getting involved.
Yeah.
Do you think it was enjoyable to watch on the basis of that?
I did, yeah. I'll start by saying, and I'm echoing a sentiment already expressed by Alex of the film angle. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I'll just...
Don't.
Basically, I did think this before I heard him say it on his podcast, but a lot of practical sets. Fair play to them for not going...
Yeah, that's true.
I remember, I do think... Because I could sort of sniff green screen out reasonably easily. It's not a skill that I am particularly proud of. It's just annoying. But there wasn't a lot. Genuinely, there's a lot of real sets in this, even like the cave in Peru and stuff. And I was like, okay, fair play to them for that. Sorry, but to answer your question, yeah, it was more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be, because it was fun picking it apart and laughing at. I think it helped that I had Hannah there with me, because I could literally turn to her and go, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was on my own.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that might be, I don't know if there's...
There was about 6 other people in the cinema.
Yeah.
And they were definitely laughing, they were laughing at the film, not with it, for sure.
Right, yeah.
So it sort of made it a bit more enjoyable. There's a community element to it. But I don't like that. I really hate the idea that someone in marketing is going to pursue that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was like when they re-released Morbius.
Yeah.
That was a stupid move.
Yeah.
Because... And then there was quite a funny tweet when someone said, can you release it again for the 3rd time? Everyone was busy that weekend.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite funny how, like, the audience... They should have left it at that. Like, the audience had the upper hand there, and they attempted to capitalise on that.
Yeah,
and it failed miserably.
We talked about Barbenheimer. That was, like, audiences can create their own sort of thing, can't they? And
priceless marketing.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost as if the marketing is pointless.
Yeah. Imagine that. I'd like there to be a year where it's illegal to market a film. See what happens.
Just release them.
Just put them out there. The only marketing would be they're allowed one poster, and the only place you can see that poster will be on the website of the cinemas where you book it.
Okay.
I want to see it happen. Make it happen. Whoever is listening to this, who has that power?
An interesting experiment, wouldn't it?
I do think so. I think that'd be quite cool. Because by and large, marketing for films, even good films, is annoying. Like the Dune Part 2 marketing is annoying because it's everywhere, and it sort of makes me flinch a little bit.
It has a sort of holier than thou quality to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, you're watching a proper movie.
Yeah.
And I have seen Dune 2 already.
Yes.
And that was sort of a little bit of a gripe I had with the first Dune.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that another time. I know what you mean. Omnipresence makes it difficult. I mean, everyone has this thing where you immediately get your back up if people keep telling you something's great. Particularly common with TV shows.
Oh god,
I don't think Madame Web will have that problem.
No,
to be honest. No, I'm with you. I think there is something strangely enjoyable about it. I liked the attempt to appease that era, because it is a sort of an era of cinema that I seldom think about. When I do, I realise I have a sort of burning sort of love for.
Yeah,
so we talk about that in the context of like chilly post 9/11 thrillers.
Oh yeah.
All that kind of stuff. I do love that era of cinema.
Yes.
There's something so sort of like lost about it, I think.
Definitely.
Which I really like. So, there's always going to be a part of me that's going to be sort of slightly sort of satisfied with it, even the most shallow attempt.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I really enjoyed it. I mean, there were points where it was just like, this is just shite.
Yeah.
Like, this is so bad. Like, it's almost to the point where you just feel sorry for, the runners and the people that, to make this movie. Like,
all of the creatives who have potential to make something great and be part of something really unique, is a shame to see that squandered, for sure.
Yeah.
There are moments where it is just fun to, like, and I don't mean fun in that sit back and take in the brilliant, like, well constructed action sequences, because there are none. Like, don't get me wrong, but like it was more enjoyable for me than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I personally, I enjoyed my experience of it more than that film, which to me, like I've said it before, but was like just grey nothingness. There's something about mediocrity that annoys me more than something that's actually shit.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
What was all the stuff about the black Spider-Man suit? What the fuck was that about?
Oh yeah, they call him Ceiling Guy, don't they?
Yeah,
for a bit. They didn't capitalise on that much. No. He just turns up and he's got a Spider-Man suit all of a sudden, and it's evil. It's meant to be like evil Spider-Man.
Evil Spider-Man.
The villain was like really drastically underdeveloped. There's a kind of like theme of motherhood in it, isn't there? That they try and fail to thread through.
Yeah, because she's bitter about her mum dying in the Amazon, because she just perceives it as some sort of like sort of arrogant quest to sort of achieve some scientific kudos, right?
Yeah, but then there's a bit of exposition which fixes that.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with it. Like, you could just see the sort of innards of the film so blatantly.
Yeah.
Like, there's no attempt to just conceal any of this. There's a scene where she's like, she had some sort of degenerative disease in the womb, and she's like, "Oh my god, you were trying to save me!" It's literally like that.
Yeah.
And I was sat there going, "Fucking hell, this is crazy!" Like,
cheers for that. I didn't get that, but now you've said it.
No, cheers. Yeah, cheers, Dakota.
Also, there's a bit where that she teaches them CPR, and you're like, and it's the most obvious sort of use of. You can imagine what. They're going to use that again, aren't they? Yeah. Hannah turned to me, actually. It's usually the other way around. She's like, I wonder when that's going to come back. And you're like, and she started guessing, which is quite enjoyable, actually. She started guessing, like, who do you reckon is going to use the CPR on who? She got it completely right as well.
Yeah.
It's really predictable in that regard.
And there's that weird scene in the diner when the girls just start dancing on the table in front of those boys. I don't quite understand.
Yeah, the Britney Spears bit.
Like, is it obviously supposed to convey that these are sort of like shallow teenagers? But it's like, all right, yeah, teenagers, I guess, have it in them to behave in that manner. But that just feels like so fucking like horribly overt.
Yeah, it would make more sense if they were if they were smashed or something. It would make more sense, but it doesn't. They're just in a diner and they've just eaten loads of food.
Yeah, and you just see a group of lads and think, I'm going to get on the table.
They'll love this. Yeah.
in a way, that's sort of quite sort of early 2000s in its sort of approach to sort of gender politics.
I suppose so. Yeah,
there's a commitment there which you've got to pat it on the back for.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's the Britney Spears bit, isn't it?
Yeah, meta. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. A comment.
Yeah, I think so. There's also a lot of Pepsi product placement in it.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, it's good. I'm quite thirsty, actually, for a Pepsi. Thanks, Madame Web.
Yeah. God, yeah. It was everywhere.
Yeah, there's a bit where she's holding a can of it.
For ages.
Really long time.
That'll be warm by the time you drink that, mate. Put it away.
Yeah.
Back in the fridge.
They made a point of it being the original of the logo from the time.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure that was done afterwards as well.
Yeah, because the bloke gives her the drink, doesn't he? He's like, "Yeah, you've had an incident. You have to drink this." Yeah. It's like, I love product placement.
It is when it's obvious, it's quite funny. When it's subtle, it's a bit annoying because you sort of second or third viewing, you're like, I hate it.
I just find it even more galling that I've had to sit through half an hour of utter fucking shit in the adverts in the cinema. And then you get the trailers, and then you get another advert after now. It's going to get to the point where you just won't be able to fucking escape them. They're going to keep coming. But now we've got to watch them in the film as well.
Yeah,
these fucking people just aren't happy until they can like just sort of remind you constantly. Like, I don't need to be reminded that fucking Pepsi exists.
No, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that Pepsi exists. Why am I needing to be reminded in this fucking shit film?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. By the way, just in case you forgot about this fizzy drink that's everywhere, this ubiquitous fizzy drink.
Yeah.
Just in case. Here you go, look.
Oh yeah, it's nice. I'm quite thirsty now, actually. For a Pepsi.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that they stop making. They're going to make another Venom. I'm not sure about Sony and their stake in all this.
I think it does. This film just sort of smack of just complete disinterest across the board.
Yeah, completely.
And I don't know if that's like a symptom of just the kind of era that we're in. Again, we talk about this in this idea that maybe there's going to be another superhero movie that's going to come out and everyone's going to be like, oh, I love it again. But like, it does feel like this is one of the films that's sort of suggesting the coffin is, the nails are being put in.
Yeah, I've read some reviews about how it doesn't just close, it doesn't just kill the superhero genre, it sort of pisses on its ashes as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I do truly hope that this is the end of it. No, I don't think it will be though, but maybe give it another couple of years.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna disappear gracefully. I think there's gonna be a lot more shit before the studios eventually go, okay.
Yeah. Oh, what have they? They've got that Aaron Taylor Johnson one still coming out. Is it Craven the Hunter?
Craven the Hunter.
Like the lion. Yeah. Should we give that one a miss? Maybe, I don't know. Should we say right now? Let's not go and see that one.
I definitely don't think we'll cover it on this episode.
If it has more than a 95% score on Rotten Tomatoes, then we'll go and watch it.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything below that, then nah.
Yeah. We'll set the bar low for it.
Yeah.
No, not good.
No,
not good. There's also no mention of how those three girls get their powers either.
No, I don't even if there was, I probably would have forgotten it by now.
Yeah.
Is it that? No, there isn't, is there?
No.
Do they even? It's only in flashbacks that they're actually actively
in their
fighting
outfits,
crime.
Yeah.
Although they're not fighting crime, they're just gonna kill that bloke who was, as it turns out, was already dead. So his vision of the future was wrong.
Yeah.
What? I don't know.
Fucking outro.
Oh yeah, outro.
Questing the cinematic void.
There we have it then.
Oh yes, there we have it.
Thank you for listening. And also, I want to extend another thank you to Alex and Chris for last week because they thanked us on their podcast. Yeah, it was quite sweet actually. So yeah, looking forward to being on yours. Very much so. I'm looking forward to the topic in question as well. Let us know. Well, I should probably just text them actually. I don't know why I'm using the podcast as a platform to get in touch. We'll leave that. Yeah, we've got a WhatsApp group and everything. So.
Yeah. No, it was great, really great. But I've enjoyed this too. It's nice to sort of get back into the swing of being a duet. And having something sort of shit to talk about.
Definitely, yeah. I think maybe I'm quite keen on like just not thinking or talking about superheroes for a good while now.
Yeah, I feel like we have mined that a lot recently.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm always concerned about doing it because I always, I don't know, I just think, fuck, I don't want it to just be about that.
No.
Because for people that sort of claim to dislike it, we seem to talk about it a lot. So
yeah.
Let's
it
get away
speaks to
from
its ubiquity, doesn't it? That it's still such a huge topic of conversation.
Yeah, and it is a phenomenon worth talking about. Like whether you pour scorn on it, it exists and it's representative of something. So it's worth.
Definitely.
Is our pathetic attempt to intellectualise it. We're going to move away from that. We're going to stay in the realm of blockbuster cinema, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless you've been living in a cave, you would be very much aware of Dune 2.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to the film as well. I had a particularly positive cinematic experience with number one, which I think we might touch on next week as well.
Yeah.
And the merit of a theatrical experience. I think I'd like to talk about that for a little bit.
I completely agree with you. Yeah. I have already seen Dune 2.
Yes.
So I'm gonna let my opinions age like a fine wine over the coming week. Guest.
Yeah,
we
potential
talk about
guest.
Being a duet. Straight back in. The beloved Alfie Martin, hopefully on board.
Yeah, it'd be good to get his take on it.
Original Cineboy. And big fan of Dune 2, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll be interested to hear his points in greater detail.
Yeah.
His letterbox, I think, scratched the surface. Got the itch going. So.
Oh, really? Okay, I've not actually read his letterbox review, so that's something to do on the way home.
Indeed. Whilst driving,
yeah.
Just drive off the Severn Bridge. Reading Alfie's.
And the next week it's just you and Alfie. No explanation.
A really solemn episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I echo Ben's sentiment. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you in the next one.
See you then.
Bye.